So in this video we have news regarding a possible new PlayStation portable device capable of playing all your PlayStation 5 games, but with one major caveat. And Sony's PlayStation VR 2 manufacturing has reportedly been reduced by 20%. Was Sony's latest VR device just bad timing in this current economic climate? And we'll certainly be talking about that, and a new PlayStation patent has been discovered that is said to allow the changing of temperature in PlayStation game controllers. What? I guess that may bring a new spin on consumers going hot or cold on a new game release. And the ongoing fight for Call of Duty is coming to its conclusion. And while let's just say the UK regulator, the CMA, has made a decision that hasn't exactly gone Sony's way. And now PlayStation boss Jim Ryan is royally pissed. Happy Easter bank holiday weekend. Welcome back to another Foxy Games UK video. Simply like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and follow Foxy Games UK via Twitter at FoxyGames_UK for more informative gaming news for gamers by gamers. So in today's video, our first news story comes by way of VideoGamesChronicle.com, VGC, and Sony has called out UK regulators for reversing its stance on the Microsoft-Activision deal and calling them surprising and irrational. The CMA now says the merger won't significantly lessen competition. So Sony has criticised the UK's Competition and Markets Authority CMA on its revised appraisal of Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. After 5 months of investigation, the UK regulator provisionally found in February that the deal could reduce competition and result in higher prices, fewer choices, or less innovation for UK gamers. However, a month later, the CMA seemingly reversed its decision, saying it had updated its provisional findings after receiving fresh evidence that alleviated some of the concerns about the $69 billion deal. Sony's response, published recently by the CMA, questions the regulator's new stance. Here's a quote. The CMA's reversal of its position on its console's theory of harm is surprising, unprecedented, and irrational. So the PlayStation company argues that the CMA had assessed a significant body of evidence to come to its initial conclusion, where it had suggested there would be an issue with the acquisition. It also adds that the CMA's new diametrically opposite approach is based almost exclusively on a single economic model on which it places significantly more weight than other available evidence. Specifically, it claims that the CMA's new findings are based on a new lifetime value model which shows how much an average player is worth to a company over time. It says the new model suggests Microsoft would see a significant financial loss if it kept Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox, and that therefore there was no incentive to keep Call of Duty off PlayStation. However, Sony's claims the new data the CMA was using is flawed, and that if the errors were to be corrected, when the gains Microsoft would get from players switching to Xbox would be 3 times as high as the lifetime value of an average PlayStation user. Sony's response also claims that the CMA had previously calculated lifetime player value on typical Microsoft documents created in the ordinary course of business, which had been used to suggest there was a strong incentive to keep Call of Duty off PlayStation, and that for its new findings it allegedly adopts without apparent explanation Microsoft's own adjusted lifetime value estimates. Furthermore, the CMA's new conclusion wrongly downplays the significant strategic benefits to Microsoft adding Activision content to Game Pass. And the CMA has now concluded not a single user with less than 10 hours of gameplay or $100 spend on Call of Duty would switch from PlayStation to Xbox, something it questions. Using Minecraft as an example of a game Microsoft kept multi-platform simply doesn't work, because Minecraft is a single release game that is already in users' hands, and that it does not drive anything like the level of gameplay, engagement, or purchasing decisions as Call of Duty. And Sony's argument concludes that the addendum does not justify CMA's U-turn on the console's theory of harm. To reach a robust decision, the CMA should revisit its analysis of Microsoft's incentives and partial foreclosure, correcting for the errors identified in this paper. It is getting a bit messy, isn't it? Now, in a bid to gain approval for the deal, Microsoft has told regulators it's willing to make each new Call of Duty game available on PlayStation the same day it comes to Xbox for a 10-year period with full content and feature parity, in an attempt to address concerns at the impact that the merger will have on the cloud gaming market. Well, Microsoft also recently announced several deals to bring Call of Duty to third-party cloud gaming platforms should the acquisition be approved. The CMA's final report ruling on the Activision Blizzard deal is due by April 26th. Wow. And you've got Jim Ryan really up in arms about this. I mean, he's doing his job, he's fighting the deal, he's working on the behalf of obviously Sony and shareholders. But if you hop over to VGCharts.com, Jim Ryan has said our business would never recover if Microsoft degraded Call of Duty on PlayStation. So Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan, in the company's response to the UK regulator, the Competition and Markets Authority CMA addendum, stated PlayStation would never recover if Microsoft were to release a degraded version of Call of Duty on PlayStation if its acquisition of Activision Blizzard goes ahead. Ryan said the degraded version of Call of Duty on PlayStation would seriously damage our reputation. Our gamers would desert our platform in droves, and network effects would exacerbate the problem. Our business would never recover. Sony says the addendum from the CMA ignored the testimony from Ryan and assumed that even a degraded version of the series on PlayStation would not cause gamers to switch from PlayStation to Xbox. The addendum appears to ignore this testimony, together with other evidence showing the sensitivity of gamers, and assumes that even though Call of Duty is acknowledged to be an important part for console competition, it would be degraded without causing gamers to switch, reads a response from Sony Interactive Entertainment. This speculation is unsubstantiated, inconsistent with the facts, and cannot rationally support a decision to find that no SLC will arise in consoles. Sony concluded that the addendum does not justify the CMA's U-turn on the console's theory of harm, and the revised LTV model is really vitiated by errors that bias the model to really finding no evidence or incentive to Microsoft to foreclose. The addendum jettisons without sound reason, and the PFs, through analysis of the evidence, is establishing Microsoft's incentives, and the addendum's partial foreclosure discussion is based on pure speculation rather than evidence. To reach a robust decision, the CMA should revisit its analysis of Microsoft incentives and partial foreclosure, correcting the errors. So Jim Ryan wants the CMA to go back and look at other evidences, but the CMA, it's almost as if they're being told what to do here by Jim Ryan, and I'm not sure these people are going to be happy about being told how to do their job. It doesn't matter how much or how little they know about the games industry. They look at it from a business point of view: monopolizing, full control, lack of access, lack of quality. It doesn't matter if it's Nike sneaker pumps or a video game or whatever. Business is business. However, I do think Sony's going a bit too far with this. I don't believe Call of Duty is that important to the console sphere. I mean, Sony existed before Call of Duty existed. And when Microsoft had the deal on Xbox 360, well, I'm not sure how much it hurt Sony. But Jim Ryan's obviously doing what Jim Ryan needs to do, and that is to fight like hell until a decision is made. So at least Jim Ryan can say, well, I fought for the PlayStation base, I fought for the PlayStation company, I fought on behalf of Sony, rather than him being criticized for just without any opposition on his part. Sound off in the comments, let me know what you think. And so we hot-footed over to Forbes.com in relation to, can Sony U-turn from PlayStation VR 2 and give us the PSP/Vita sequel? Paul Tassi, senior contributor. Okay, I got a problem with that headline straight away. So Paul Tassi is asking a question: should Sony literally ditch PlayStation VR 2 and concentrate on portable? So what about all the people at purchased VR2, including myself? I don't think so. And I'm going to really question the sales of PlayStation VR2 and why they are apparently performing under par. When you consider there are factors in play here, it's not like it's available everywhere. So the problem with PlayStation VR2 is not the technology. According to Paul Tassi, by all accounts, it's a great VR system full of meaningful progression from the medium and at least a handful of solid games at launch. The problem is everything else, the failure of VR to land to mainstream appeal, Meta's positioning of the concept by pitching it as a gateway to the metaverse that almost no one actually wants. And for PlayStation VR2 specifically, a high price. I said it already. High price, poor timing in this economic climate. It's literal and financial link to PlayStation 5 with no backwards compatibility for PlayStation VR and somewhat anemic future games lineup all don't bode very well for it. Early reports are coming in that the system may be underperforming worse than its predecessor, which only sold about 6 million units in its entire lifetime. Now, in contrast, for a while now, there's been a lot of fan chatter about the idea of Sony going in a different hardware direction, that perhaps they were ahead of their time with the past handheld devices like PSP and Vita, a portion of PlayStation hardware that was killed off officially back in 2019 when Sony stopped producing the Vita entirely. This is coming up mainly because of the blinding success of the Nintendo Switch. The console/handheld hybrid has won effectively the last 2 console generations despite ancient graphics, and it cannot be argued against that its success is a combination of Nintendo's great first-party offerings but also, at its core, its portable nature. Nintendo was still making good games in the Wii U era in spite of that system's lack of sales performance, but the gimmick there, the screen controller, did not really pull people in. And the Switch's portability, however, is a true portability, has the most appealing thing they've done hardware-wise since the original Wii, and now the Switch has surpassed that system behind only one of its other portables, the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2, and it may end up beating both. By the end of its lifespan, it's already beaten PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 4. Add on to the huge popularity of the Steam Deck, and you have yourself a current mobile revolution in gaming. I would argue Switch has also outsold every single Xbox, so it's doing incredibly well. Now the idea is that Sony should stop investing so heavily in VR, which feels like a future that is somehow always just 10 more years away from mainstream adoption and affordability, and the focus on something that tens of millions of people actually want currently. Well, a portable video game console. Of course, it's not as simple as that. There are challenges. Sony's invested a hell of a lot into VR, and it would be crazy for them to just kill that off. I think they have to ride this through. VR is a developing medium anyway. I think Sony realized that, as do all the other manufacturers. And they're still ahead of most of the VR manufacturers out there in terms of how many they've sold, dominating the VR market. But Sony is focused on horsepower above all these days, and a handheld is a bit tricky in that department, as it would require a lot of work to develop and port games for the system, something that it sort of had issues with the Vita. It tried at first and then suddenly just indie games on Vita. Now the Steam Deck is probably the best example of how to do it right, and there's also other handhelds that are surpassing Steam Deck in terms of power, not necessarily affordability though. So if Sony had created a subpar handheld experience, that would do more harm than good. And finally, dedicated mobile hardware may not be the future after all. It's possible that after this current Switch Steam Deck era, things like game streaming tech may improve to the point where you just don't need any dedicated hardware, just a phone or a tablet with an Wi-Fi connection. This is already the direction Xbox is heavily leaning in with its Xbox Cloud gaming, and it has those options. So in terms of a portable, it would be more like a PlayStation companion device that we've heard works through remote play, so that you can access all of your PlayStation games on your, obviously, hard drives and play them. So this is not a cloud system, it's remote play, which doesn't really do much to excite me. However, ultimately, I still think it's a handheld unit that attempts to emulate the Steam Deck and Switch is a much better investment than going for PlayStation VR 3, according to Paul Tassi. It's already unclear just how much Sony support will give the VR system long term, and I do think there's a large market for a portable version of PlayStation in 2023, and there still would be in 2026, 2027, whenever such a thing may actually come to fruition. However, for PlayStation VR, it's a bit of a tall order, more of a mountain to climb, because it doesn't work on its own. You need to have both PlayStation VR 2 and the PlayStation 5 system, as you did with the PlayStation VR. So portable, not remote play though, maybe as an option. I hope if they do come out with a portable companion device for PS5 that does do remote play, of course, as the rumors suggest, I hope it's cloud enabled as well, and I hope it's got a chip in there powerful enough to at least run indie games. You know what I mean? Those 2D, cute, artistically enticing indie games. And in our final news story, heading back over to videogameschronicle.com, a new Sony patent shows a controller that can change temperature, and the design could theoretically make players' hands warmer or colder at certain points in a game. A new Sony patent application has been published for a controller that can change temperature during gameplay. As initially spotted by Xputer, the patent, which is simply named controller, could be partly made of a softer material rather than a hard plastic shell. This material could be elastically deformed, such as silicone gel-based material, and could connect to a circuit that processes the information. According to Sony, by making part of the controller out of this elastic material instead of the hard plastic, it could make the controller capable of enriching haptic experiences. It also, however, states that the temperature control apparatus, such as a Peltier element capable of electrically charging temperature, may be provided on the front surface of or inside the elastic member. This would essentially mean that if you go out into a hot or cold environment within a game, you will feel it in your hands of the controller and could receive electrical signals that adjust the temperature of the material. Theoretically, this could mean that if players enter a volcano, a snowy area in a game, the controller may be able to heat up or cool down accordingly. Wow, that's something. It should also be noted that with every patent application, and even those which are granted just because Sony has been working on this as R&D, research and development, that doesn't confirm that it's going to be a future PlayStation controller. It could just end up filed away somewhere for the next 25 years, as often happens with patents. And in 2020, another Sony patent was spotted for a controller that could gather biofeedback from a player's hand, such as sweat, secretion, heart rate, and changes games accordingly. That hasn't come out either. In fact, you'd be surprised how many of these patents Sony, Microsoft, they all have, and they've done nothing, because it might not be affordable to mass market produce at this time. Maybe in 10, 20 years from now, they can make it affordable for everybody. And there you have it. Them is the news. So what you got today in this video was Wednesday and Friday in one, which is why the video's double length. I had appointments on Wednesday. I was unable to, by the time I got home, it was very late and I was very tired. So you got two videos in one today, Wednesday and Friday, because I don't want you guys to miss out. But in terms of all the news today, what say you? Let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments, as that brings us to the end of the video. Just like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment regularly on videos, be actively engaged, and you can help Foxy Games UK reach more gamers, so feel free to share the video. You may also wish to consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon, because, well, we're like family now. Link in the description. But that concludes our time together on this bank holiday Easter weekend. I hope you have a splendid time with your family and your friends. Until next time, play games, not corporations.